Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Velero community meeting / open discussion. We got a bunch of things per usual that we want to run through. If you have any any items that you would like to add to the meeting notes, I'm going to share the link to the meeting notes in the chat as well. And with that, I'm going to share the agenda and then kick it off with some status updates. So first up, we got Steve.
Yeah, just a quick update for me. So got the first beta for 1.3 shipped at the end of last week. So that's out there for folks who want to test it out. At the beginning of this week, yesterday, I was working on putting up a draft of the blog post for the 1.3 release. So just working on refining that. Let's see, last week I also worked on doing some refactoring and some of our restore code to make it a little bit cleaner to be able to restore CRDs followed by CRs, including a refresh of the discovery API information that Velero caches. I think I mentioned that I was going to work on this last week, so I have a draft PR up that seems to be working as expected, working properly. It's not an urgent thing. I'm not intending to get it put into 1.3, but whenever folks have a chance to take a look at it, feedback would be welcome. And then it was just doing a little bit of ad hoc testing of the beta. Things looked good to me based on the scenarios I was tested. I put up one small UX PR based on some stuff I found, but that's about it. And then just kind of helping out and adding my thoughts on the ongoing CRD issues, which Nolan will talk about in a little bit.
Cool. Awesome. And the blog post, do you think you'll have a draft on that today or tomorrow?
I put the draft up internally, so it's ready for review. I can send out another link.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions, comments for Steve? All right, Carlisia.
I was on community support last week, and I updated the CLI revamp PR. Basically, I reorganized the commands based on feedback and also based on more insights that I understood after rethinking the whole thing. Some of it, the backup location and snapshot location commands actually are not going to change much with a couple minor exceptions. And in the mainly the change there is that those are not going to change. The Velero config that I had originally, I had to remove that, and I explained it in the tickets. I am putting together some YAMLs to see if I can run them, install Velero with the kustomize commands. So hopefully I'll get that working. I'm thinking I'm gonna run into trouble, and I'll figure it out, but that's what I'm doing now. If anybody is an expert in kustomize and wants to look at my proof of concept today, just ping me, please. And that's it.
Cool. Any questions, comments for Carlisia?
Carlisia, I haven't looked at the design doc PR in a little bit, but I'll make sure to prioritize looking at it over the next day or two.
All right. So the thing to pay attention is so I reorganized the commands, and another big thing that I reorganized that's new is I moved everything from the server to Velero inits, because I thought those, to me, they seemed to belong in the same place. So if you look at that and you think, not really, then I will rethink things. Otherwise, so I'm going to work on this proof of concepts for kustomize based on what's there now. But
Okay.
I think it's going in the right direction.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Moving on to Nolan.
Yep. This week I am on community support. So I've got a backlog of PRs I need to get to today. Last week I was out moving, and this week I am back to working on the CRD issues, troubleshooting number 2249, which I'll go more into depth on in the discussion topics. I don't want to take the whole update section to talk about that, but basically that with some of the changes we made that went into v1.3.0, that kind of surfaced some issues with the solution we had implemented for the beta. So I'll talk about what the problem is, and I think I need to do some more research today to make sure I'm on the right path this time. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that solution will look like in the discussion topics, but that's kind of the main thrust of the work. And then Ashish has been doing most of the CSI work, but I hope to get back to working with him on that here this week. And that's my update.
All right, cool. Yes, we'll dive into the CRD troubleshooting in a bit. Let's move on to Ashish.
Updates for me is we figured out what was causing the memory leak from issue 2069, and it looks like we already have a fix in the beta release. So that was one thing. The other thing is an update on the CSI stuff. Yesterday I was able to set up an environment using the beta snapshot CSI environment to use the beta snapshot APIs, and I was able to perform like snapshots and restores. So I have that going. I wasn't sure. I know we spoke about having a blog post about that. I wasn't sure if the blog post was once we have it working with Velero, or was it just how to use CSI, how to use the beta APIs for CSI snapshots. So based on what we decide, maybe I will put together a draft for a blog post and like circulate internally, and then kind of continue working on the CSI stuff and see how if our CSI plugin works as is, or whatever changes we need to make. We will. I will start working on that. So that's all the updates from me.
That's awesome, and that was merged into master. What was it? 21 days ago. So that's in beta 1 as well.
Yeah, that PR was actually, it was a fix for another issue, but ended up having the side effect of fixing the memory leak as well. So it wasn't our intention when we coded it, but it fixed 2 issues.
Yeah.
So unintentional memory leak fixed. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments, Ashish? All right. So quick one from me. Ashish, I'm going to mute you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Quick one from me. We've implemented an ADOPTERS.md file for public user statements. So we have a few in here. Some of you are on this call as well. So thank you so much for adding your information in here. So we got statements from BitGo, Nirmata Cloud, Kima Project, Red Hat, Dell EMC, Bugsnag, and Banzai Cloud. If you are an adopter of Velero and you want to add yourself in here as a success story or maybe a solution built with Velero, please do so. Please add a PR. I know we have some updates coming in for this adopters file as well from Michael, and Carlisia. So just small language updates mostly. So yeah, please add yourself there if you are a Velero adopter. The other thing that I'm working on is a plugins page for Velero. I've now heard back from all the people that I've asked to add to the plugins page. So hopefully I'll get to finish that up today or later tomorrow morning, and then we could launch it later this week.
So Jonas, is that kind of, I don't want to say a duplicate, but is it similar to the information that's on the GitHub topic search? So if I share this link in chat, I see you have some issues against some other folks' plugins.
Yeah, so similar to that, but actually showing it on the other web page properly. So it'll look like this. Okay. Because we want to make sure that we have some of that information out here so people can easily find, hey, here are some plugins.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll look like this. We've implemented this for Sonoboy as well. We're going to look into this for Octant and others too.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And Carlisia, you had a question regarding this as well. If this kind of remove the need for the documentation or have the same information? No. You already have very well documented providers here. So we want to keep those definitely. And want to make sure that we link to them. But plugins here are different because I'm not planning on listing the compatible storage providers like Noba, IBM Cloud, because they don't have a specific plugin. So I think those could be in here. If you want to revamp this to plugins and providers or something like that, we can do that later. But right now it's just plugins. Yes, sorry.
No, just wanted to make sure you didn't move on. You done?
Yep.
That looks awesome, by the way. I hadn't seen that page. I saw the PR, but I hadn't seen it put together like that. I was actually hoping that we would only keep one of those, and I prefer this one. So it's because, and I'm going to also mention this on my PR. We did talk about this before. We have this concept of plugins and also the concept of provider, and can be confusing. Mm-hmm. So what it really is, what those two things really is that we can have one plugin of one type, one kind, which can be object store or snapshotter, and for one provider. And we can have multiple plugins for the same provider. So in my head, it makes more sense. And Nolan, I think Nolan might still agree with this concept because he did make a comment on a UX, CLI UX epic before. So just trying to make people remember that we did talk about this before. So right now, we address a lot of things as like, oh, what provider do you need? So if you need this provider, go get this plugin. And that's how that original documentation is laid out. I think it should be the opposite. It should be, okay, here are all the plugins for whatever provider. So just pick which plugin you need. Instead of, you know what I mean? So instead of leading with provider, lead with plugin. There is a flag on our install CLI that's named provider. I'm going to suggest that we rename that to plugin. And I think this ties in with this change you made. I think we could find a way. I mean, making this page, if everybody approves of this change from provider to plugin, this page will have to be reformatted. And I think maybe this is something we can think about, and maybe reformulate and integrate this into the new page you have. So when I was asking you that question, I was hoping you would say yes, basically. Gotcha. But in any case, if we don't, I think it might be confusing to have this page in that other page. So I do have this opinion that no matter what, it could be confusing, because what is the difference? If I'm new to Velero and I'm trying to understand what the components are, and I see these two things, they seem similar. So I'm like, I'll be thinking, why do you have these two things, things that seem to be different, but they seem the same? Anyway, that's my many cents.
Yeah, I agree with you, Carlisia. Nolan, do you have anything you want to add here?
I strictly in terms of the docs and the website, I think it's duplicating the information, and that's a little confusing because like in terms of the website structure, this lives in the documentation section, and so far we've kind of kept the documentation segment separate from the higher level website. And if we like merge that content and move it up to the plugins part, we're starting to blur that line kind of without intentionally planning for it. So I'm not explicitly opposed to moving it there, just like making sure we know we're doing that, and starting to pull the documentation out. I kind of like having the documentation here because it is documentation for, hey, I'm installing this and I need to know what I'm doing and what's supported, and hey, I have something S3 compatible and I need to know what plugin that uses. But I like the concept of that tile-based, card-based look of, hey, I'm looking to install Velero, what does it support? So I think they duplicate each other, but also I can see from another angle that the pages serve two different audiences. So
yeah, they do.
This may be a discussion that we can have on the PR, because I would like to find a way that we could dedupe it somehow, because I think both pages are useful. I just don't want to have to maintain both or make our site start like getting mixed, and then we start having publishing issues accidentally.
Yep, definitely. So the plugins page was similar to the ADOPTERS.md, an easy way for plugin creators to add themselves without having to go through a bunch of documentation changes and things like that. So that's the genesis of it, essentially. One thing that Michael talked about last week in a meeting was to add in some sort of badges to the little squares here. So you would have this supports object store, this supports volume snapshotter. So it gives you an easy overview of what supports what. So you will have a more graphical overview instead of a grid like this or a table like this. So that's something that we could do as well. I can easily whip up some quick badges for that.
Yeah, and the basis for that was some providers have different capabilities than others, right? So for example, local storage, like Portworx that supports it. Unless you actually go through every provider one by one and read through that, it's hard for you to figure out what each one of them supports. So for the customers that are coming in and say, hey, I care about AWS, how do you figure out if AWS is supported or not?
Yeah, and that's fair. And this particular page, like that, just looking at that URL, it's harder to find that URL than to go to velero.io/plugins. Yeah.
I don't mean to drag this on, but here I am. what are the different audiences for this page versus the plugins page?
I mean, the audience is always the same. It's, end users that are consuming Velero and they're interested in.
Nolan and Jonas said that the audiences for this page and the other plugin page that Jonas just created, they are different. And I was trying to understand, because to me, they seem the same too. I agree with you, Michael. So, but just because I am going to be making a suggestion for change. So I just wanted to understand better.
So in my mind, the new page is for somebody who's evaluating to say, what does Velero do? So they could just get a quick overview and it's like, oh yeah, this is a big list, kind of like those CNCF splash pages that just have crap tons of logos on it. Whereas this is a little bit more detailed, and it's a jumping point for specific documentation and setup instructions and things like that. If you want to get to the code and do more digging, that's in my head. Those are the two audiences.
My wish would be to take the page that Jonas just put together, and maybe we can have a link from the docs to the same, like instead of having that supported providers link on the left, we'll just have supported plugins or like plugins. In that page that Jonas just created, I would title, like have subsections for each plugin type, and add links to the documentation from each of that square for the documentations that we know of, and just have a way to indicate which one of those are supported by the Velero team, and call it a day.
So let me make a suggestion. Why don't you guys meet offline and agree on a proposal and can either bring it back to the team or go ahead and implement it. So it's up to you guys. Looks like you two feel strongly about it. So why don't you work offline to figure it out?
That works.
Works for me.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have a couple of, and I need to drop. My customary meeting starts in a few minutes, so I need to get out. I was wondering if I can bring a couple of quick things. Mr. Dylan Murray, I see you're on. I don't know if you can hear us. I believe Steve had pinged you about that custom CA support for self-signing certs. I'm wondering if there's an update on that. I know your team was working on a POC on that.
Yep. So that's actually on the discussion topic today. I have a design doc that's in a PR. There's a few questions that I actually need to bring up about it because, well, yeah, you guys want to talk about this now, or I know you have to drop soon, so is there anything else you want to bring up, or you want me to give the update here?
Yeah, let's get this update if possible before I drop.
Sure. So basically, our proof of concept had to do some really hacky changes to get the REST component working here. But if we take a step back and think about, well, if we want to support custom CAs for Velero, there's really two ways that me as a user of Velero can declare these custom CAs. So one is at install time, and one is per object storage on a backup storage location. The install time, so if I do like Velero install custom CA cert and pass a file in, that's an easier problem to solve because you can actually store the certs in the REST container and in the Velero container, or optionally specify it as an environment variable on the Velero deployment. But the real goal of what I was trying to solve, and my team was trying to solve with the proof of concept was, well, when I create a backup storage location, how can I actually supply a secret? And inside of that secret, store my CA bundle, and then actually allow that to be used through the entire backup and restore process. So from the Velero side, this isn't too bad, mainly because we're using the AWS SDK. So we can just apply the CA bundle to a AWS session object. Or the question that I really wanted to bring up here in the community meeting, and I encourage you guys to read this all in your own time because I don't want to like run through the entire thing right now, but since RESTIC requires the cert to be inside the container, for lack of a better term, on disk, the only way that once I create a backup storage location with a secret, the only way to really get that cert in the container is to modify the daemon set. and mount the secret as a volume, right? That seems really troublesome to me because, you know, there's no guarantee that Rustic isn't in the process of performing some action when a new BSL is created, right? So we'd either have to like block and wait for Rustic to be in a mode where nothing's going on before we modify the daemon set. Or we can do what in the proof of concept that we did, which was incredibly hacky. And I didn't even bring it up in the design because I don't think this would ever be accepted. We added in a init container to Rustic. And in the init container, it essentially sets up a symlink between a mounted secret and the Rustic daemon set. And what that does is that every time the secret is updated, because of the symlink, the actual folder on disk in Rustic gets updated with the proper certs. That was the only way we could get this working in like a quick 1 week proof of concept here. And I'm basically what I want to question is like from the Velero team, is it a non-starter that Velero would go and modify the Rustic daemon set every time a BSL is created? Because that seems like it's not a good idea to me.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you describe it, it also doesn't sound like a great idea to me. It sounds like there's lots of potential for things to go wrong, even if we try to like code around it.
So do you think that scaling back this design to simply solve the installation case makes sense? Because it seems like there's a lot more work in the BSL side.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I wonder if we could, you know, at least start with the sort of solving the install case and seeing how far that gets us. I mean, I don't have a, you know, a great sense of all the users who are interested in this feature, how many would have their use case solved by just doing it at install time versus at the BSL level.
I can tell you it does not solve our use case. So I am definitely very interested in solving the backup storage location thing, but I really need some ideas on other ways to do this because modifying the Rustic daemon set during runtime just seems like that's never going to work without breaking stuff. But I'm not really quite sure how else to do it.
Yeah, and that too, because we share rest across all like backup storage locations, updating CSRs for just one storage should not kind of bring down Rustic for everything else.
Yeah,
which would happen if Rustic would be up.
Yeah. And this design is tying the cert to the BSL, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the BSL is going to contain a secret reference, and inside that secret will be the CA bundle.
Okay.
So mainly what I wanted to just bring up was mention that that's kind of an open issue here. I would appreciate if you guys could just take a look and leave some feedback. Maybe I'll scope this back as a first pass to install for the install case. But my team is definitely still interested in solving this BSL thing. But for our like proof of concept, we are moving down the path of the symlink thing. It's just, you know, it's definitely not ideal. So that's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was just gonna say, well, I'll try and take a look in the next couple of days and add comments and any ideas we have.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dylan. Any other questions, comments for Dylan's design doc here?
I'll reread this, but one thing I'll throw out is, have you considered just adding it as a secret that's not linked to the BSL?
So yeah, I mean, I can do that, but then the user's going to just have to modify the daemon set. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like I create a secret, I modify the daemon set to mount it myself?
Oh yeah, it would have to be modified to mount it. Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is, while we figure out a way to solve this problem elegantly, do we need to like propose a workaround for folks who are encountering this already? That way they are not blocked.
Yeah. Actually, there is a workaround today with a manual intervention. If the user goes in and modifies the deployment for Velero and modifies the Rustic daemon set, you can get this working no problem.
Yeah.
But we also had to build our own custom Velero image to pass in the CA cert flag to Rustic. That's kind of like the only missing component in Velero.
Okay.
Customizing rustic behavior is not something that Velero really exposes well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And I
I'm
don't
happy to
think
update the
we,
design doc with that workaround if you're interested in that.
yeah, and I don't think we intended to make rustic like exposed to our users also. So when we started, but anyway.
All right, so a little more thought into it, and then we can come back to that. Let's move over to Carlisia. And then Nolan, you wanted to talk about this as well, right?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Nolan. I just pasted the link there. So Nolan, do you want to take it?
Yeah.
He's been investigating and working on this issue.
Yeah, so let's see. I had some windows open for this, but I have a ton of browser windows open. The main thing I've been looking at is issue 2249. There's two issues in the link that Carlisia had shared. One of them is actually a general issue with how Velero's always worked, and I haven't commented on it yet. Yeah, under labels versioning, that link. 2251 is actually just how Velero's always worked. We just kind of highlighted it because CRDs were an exception that we fixed. So with the exception of CRDs, Velero has always used the preferred version of an API group. And with v1.3 beta 1, we are making CRDs respect that. This user is requesting some way to specify something different, basically saying, hey, I know this is the preferred group, but I want this one. And so I need to circle back to this and basically label this as a feature request. Because I think it might be a valid feature request, but Velero, ever since I think it was first conceived, has always done preferred version with the exception of some hard-coded logic in CRDs. So yeah, the recent fixes for CRDs just kind of highlighted this. So that one I'm not going to focus on, but if we go over to that slide, so I want to do a summary of this issue 2249 that Genting from SUSE, I forget how to pronounce it. But basically, we ran into this issue, which actually Velero CRDs in the Helm chart repo have an issue with. And so basically, if a CRD is defined without a schema, it can be submitted to a Kubernetes 116 cluster as a v1 beta 1 CRD just fine. So Kubernetes 116 will take it. It'll be readable via the v1 CRD endpoint without the schema. So you request it from Kubernetes using kubectl get. It'll come back. The YAML and the JSON will have the CRD without the structural schema, and it will look fine. So whether you do kube control or a Velero backup, it will come back as a v1 CRD without the schema. And then because Velero is doing the server preferred version, it's backing it up as v1. And if you go to restore into a 116 cluster, it'll restore as v1 CRD without the schema. And the restore will fail because a v1 CRD must have a schema. Otherwise, it's not valid. So if we go to the next slide, In visual terms, submitting it with Helm is submitting it to the V1 beta 1 endpoint. So Kubernetes says, oh, yep, that's a V1 beta 1. That's completely valid. And if you say, hey, give me that CRD back from the API server, it's going to give you the same CRD, but as V1. And then if you go to the next slide and you back it up with Velero, Velero is going to request the preferred version, and Kubernetes 1.16 will return V1, which Velero will stuff in the backup. Go to the next slide. Kubernetes then submits the V1 CRD to the API server. If you go to the next slide, you get an error saying, hey, you need to have a schema. Because Velero basically got essentially a V1 beta 1 document, but updated the version to say V1. So slide number 7, the last one, current thinking is we're thinking about making a backup item action that as we're doing a backup, if we see a V1 CRD with no schemas at all, like that field's nil, we're going to back it up as V1 beta 1. And when we restore it, we will restore it as V1 beta 1. So this is actually, we saw this in the beginning of this whole saga and we thought that was a bug. But this actually turns out be the correct behavior because we can't reconstruct a schema for you. We have no idea what a valid schema is. But I'm going to do some more research to make sure this is our best path and maybe put out a demo of this. I've got a very basic plugin that just says, hey, yes, I found V1 CRDs with no schemas. I need to do some more work on that to make sure that this will actually work. And I need to double check my findings with Kubernetes' API conventions just to make, and compatibility guarantees, just to make sure this is correct so we don't delay 1.3 any longer than we need to, and we're not running into other special cases. So that's where we're at with the CRD issues as far as I know. If anyone else knows of CRD cases that we have not caught, or if you've seen any other 1.3 beta issues, please let us know. I hope as we get this done early this week. But yeah, that's the update that on what I've been working on and what I've seen. Jen Ting's original report was there was a nil pointer dereference, and that nil pointer was there was no schema. So I did the nil check, and then it led to the API server complaining. So yeah, that's the current state of things. So given that summary, any questions?
Just wanted to add a comment. Now that I got the picture of this whole entire issue, I think that upgrading a CRD to version 1 and making it invalid is a failure. I would think that we definitely should not go in that direction. So if a CRD comes in that's a beta and doesn't have a schema, then we just make it beta and not upgrade it to version 1.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to try as much as we can. Steve and I were looking at that yesterday, and I need to see. I might have to do something funny with the backup item actions. I'm hoping it's not too much of a change to the backup code, but we'll see. But I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure exactly what manipulation I'm going to have to do. Whether I don't know if I'll just requery for like generate a new client for v1 beta 1 CRDs and get it, or just change the struct, or just add beta 1 to the unstructured field or something like that. But yeah, that's my hope, is I can just change that. I inspect it and say, hey, this, I was given this, it's v1, it doesn't have a structural schema. Modify it before you put it in the backup. But yeah, I agree. It's clearly wrong. And if it's v1 beta 1 and has a schema, it's much safer to upgrade it to v1. And I have some documentation, and we've got an issue upstream that Genting also filed, with some conversations with SIG API machinery experts talking about how they expect this to be rectified. And in their view, it's just resubmit it to the v1 beta 1 endpoint. So yeah, they expect you would retrieve it as v1 beta 1 and submit it as v1 beta 1. So that seems like the correct thing for Velero to do. In terms of long-term support, we're not going to be able to do that forever. I think v1 beta 1 is only going to be around for 3 or 4 more releases, if that. I can't remember exactly when, but not a whole lot longer, maybe a year. So folks are going to have to upgrade, including us. There's already an issue to upgrade our Helm chart to put the structural schema in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you play this forward, right, if folks don't add schemas to their CRDs, then they will reach a point where they won't be able to apply their CRDs to Kubernetes clusters, because even though the Kubernetes API machinery will do the conversion for you to v1, it's not, you can't basically get it and then reapply it to that same API endpoint. So,
yep.
You know, completely separate from Velero, users will kind of be forced to go through this process, at which point this particular issue won't really be an issue for Velero anymore.
Right, it becomes a larger Kubernetes issue.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get bug reports for it, because people will be like, oh, my old backup, I can't pull forward. And maybe when we get closer to end of life cycle, we can start like pushing out warnings to say, hey, just so you know, this backup won't be valid on the next version of Kubernetes, or something like that. If people restore it in that time, maybe they won't, but yeah, at some point it's out of our hands. We can do best effort, but if Kubernetes moves on, we can't really help them.
Yeah, and then two other quick comments. One was, you know, we could consider, so there was that other issue that was labeled that we saw around allowing the user to specify an alternate version. We could, you know, sort of put control for this in the hands of the user. So basically by implementing that feature, allow the user to say, hey, I want to back up the v1 beta 1 version of CRDs, either, you know, for this backup or have that as a server flag. But that, you know, that could be one approach that basically puts the control in the hands of the users. I don't know if it's preferable or not, but just wanted to throw that out there. And then the other thing is that, you know, this may be a general problem that we just haven't encountered before. Like if this is, you know, if this scenario where it can be converted, but then it can't be gotten and reapplied, if that's a general scenario that can happen across any kind of Kubernetes type and version upgrade, then we may need to try and think about a more general solution to this problem down the road. We've never seen this before with any of the other version upgrades for the Kubernetes types, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen more in the future.
Yeah, and I think my suspicion is CRDs just happen to be the first one to hit it.
Right.
Because they're graduating such that my understanding is CRDs are kind of with more and more stuff kind of being nudged away from Kubernetes core. CRDs were pushed to graduate to be GA. So they were pulled out of beta such that they could be relied upon for things like CSI snapshotting. So I guess it's not too surprising that they were the first ones to hit this, but yeah, I think down the line we're going to see other types hit this kind of thing.
I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but the CRDs have this thing called as a preferred storage version or something. I guess we're not talking about the CRDs specifically, but the CRD type. But never mind.
Yeah, the custom.
Never mind.
Yeah. There's CRDs are weird because there's the API version for this custom resource definition itself.
Yeah.
And then the versions it defines.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the custom resource definition itself, not the types they define.
Yeah. I just realized it as I was speaking.
And as far as I've seen, now that we have that secondary loop, which Steve's got a PR up to remove the secondary loop, and that will likely be for 1.4, we don't have issues with restoring the CRs or needing to issue a second restore once the API server's refreshed.
Yeah, that's worked correctly in all the tests I've done.
So yeah, unless anybody has any more thoughts on that, that's all I had. I'll keep an eye out for issues as people are testing, and I'll test. I will retest with, part of the issue was I completely missed testing with the Helm chart. So apologies there, but I know Genting's not on the call, but thank you, Genting, for testing that and catching that with the beta. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nolan, and everyone for your comments. We got one more thing to do. Steve, contributor shoutouts. Let me share my screen here again.
Yeah, I've got a handful of contributions in the last week. So we got a couple of docs PRs in. The first one was from Mark Riddy, updating our docs to point to the new Helm chart repo. So appreciate that update. And then Jay Nolte, I know John was on the call earlier. I don't see him anymore. He may have dropped, but added, notice that we were missing kind of API documentation or YAML documentation for the restore API type. So he added a doc there, so much appreciated. And then Mayank, I think, is on the call. We got the PR merge to allow volume snapshotter plugins to rename PVs during restores through the set volume ID function. So that's going to be helpful for their use cases around cloning PVs, I believe. So we should be able to include that in 1.3. So thanks for that PR. And then, yeah, just a general call out to Genting, who's been doing a lot of testing, digging into these CRD issues, getting a few different PRs in. So he didn't have a specific PR merge this week, but I did want to make a general shout out there and just say thanks for all of that. And then Ashish, you want to cover the last one?
Yeah, sure. So Anthony, I'm not sure if he's on the call. He was also super helpful in like testing out various versions and like providing like a very crisp test case or a way to reproduce the memory leak, which kind of shortened the time to discover and fix or identify the fix. So that was awesome. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I'm actually on the call. Yeah, thank you to,
okay.
I think, for the for all the help with debugging and chasing down the bug.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. If you have any questions or follow-ups, please hit those up on the Velero Slack channel and the Kubernetes Slack. There we go. And with that, thank you all for joining, and have a fantastic rest of the week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.